Well, lots to talk about today with the, unbelievably, the Conservative Party have actually put somebody
We'd like to say welcome back
from their senior
to the
ranks.
Tories.
They've actually decided to put someone in front of us to answer some questions with 3 weeks to go before an election, which is extraordinary.
Because currently the election for us was, well, since your interview with, well, our interview with James Cleverly, but you were taking him apart, weren't you, over...
Over faking a video,
the doctored video, and we hadn't seen them since, so it was pretty much a clear run.
And we haven't seen Boris Johnson yet, have we?
No, despite the fact that at the
promises.
Conservative Party conference, he promised our political editor, Ranvir Singh, that he would be on the programme...
Have we got that clip?
...within a couple of weeks.
Let's just play that clip again.
You're live on Good Morning Britain.
I know. How are you?
We are very well.
Tell Piers I'll come on his show as soon as I can.
Well, you can do it right now, Prime Minister.
Yes, good morning, Britain. Good morning, Piers and Susanna. I'm so sorry that we're missing you today, but I've got to go and do the Today programme. I've literally got to go and do the Today programme.
Will you promise to come on our show to our viewers, because they are your voters, as many people are potentially. So when will you come on?
I like that qualification.
When will you come on?
I'm going to come on as soon as I possibly can.
In the next week or two, we'd like to see you.
You bet.
You bet.
Yeah, that was,
as soon as I possibly can.
That was 5-6 weeks ago.
That was at the beginning of October. But we have in the Prime Minister's place Nicky Morgan, who is the Culture Secretary.
Oh, my God, is a senior member of the Conservative Party. Well, at the moment, you're leaving, aren't you?
I'm not leaving the Conservative Party, but I'm not standing for election as a Member of Parliament. That is true.
Why not?
A whole host of reasons, mainly family and the demands of the job, but also it's been a very difficult environment, and I just wanted to take a step back. But
well, that's interesting you say that, because of course you had said you're not standing down for any reasons of disagreement with the Prime Minister or the direction of the government, but that abuse of MPs had contributed to the decision. Has the atmosphere become too toxic?
Well, I think the atmosphere has been very difficult, and Parliament has been very frustrating. I found it very frustrating to be part of a Parliament that for 3.5 years has not delivered on the 2016 referendum, regardless of what we all personally think about that result. And that's why we're having this election. The Prime Minister is very clear. You know, we didn't want to have it.
Well, you've switched it. To be fair, Nicky Morgan, you seem to have swerved to a political point, and I wondered actually whether it was personal abuse that had caused you to step down, because that's two different things, isn't it?
Well, they are different. Look, it's all interrelated, I think, with any job. But it is true to say I and a lot of other MPs have had significant amounts of personal abuse. And being an MP is a fantastic job, and there's thousands of candidates across the country at the moment who hope to be there from December the 13th. But I think you all have to weigh these things up in terms of impact on family and everything else that is going on to wonder if you're in the right place or not. But my commitment to having a majority Conservative government remains absolutely undimmed.
OK, let's talk then about the Conservative manifesto and just unpick a little bit of the truth behind some of these pledges. For instance, 50,000 more nurses are being promised. Now, if you have a look at those figures, it suggests that around 19,000 of the 50,000 figure will come from keeping nurses we've already got. How can you say that there's going to be 50,000 more if 19,000 already are there?
Well, because the 50,000 more is exactly what it says, which is that in 10 years' time, there will be 50,000 more nurses in our NHS, which obviously is good news for patients and their families in terms of making sure that when they need the NHS, there are people there, obviously, to look after them.
But you're recounting 19,000 who already are in the NHS.
No, what we're saying is, as part of making sure that in 10 years' time, there are 50,000 more nurses, like any employer, and of course the NHS is a huge employer, retaining your highly skilled staff is a key part of your workforce strategy.
But it doesn't mean there are more nurses.
Well, it will mean
there are
more...
31,000 more nurses.
No.
And we're going to hang on to 19,000 nurses.
No, look, the bottom line, and the manifesto is crystal clear on this, 50,000 more nurses over the course of the next, by the time we get to 10 years' time, and they will be there through a variety of different routes. Some absolutely will be retained, and that's a key part of any, as I say, workforce strategy. You don't want to lose your highly skilled staff, but there'll be others coming in
sorry. With the
via
greatest
other
of
routes.
respect, Culture Secretary, stopping people leaving is not more nurses, is it?
And there will be
They're not the same
50,000
thing.
more. No, 50,000 more nurses. There through a variety of different routes.
19,000 of them are just people you're going to persuade to stay. That's not more nurses.
There'll be 50,000 more
No, I know you
nurses
keep saying
in
that,
the
but
NHS.
can you explain the 19,000... Well,
I am explaining it. Piers, I am explaining it.
Treat me as a complete idiot, because at the moment I feel
I'd
like
never do
one.
that.
I
I'd never
don't
do that.
understand how it can be 50,000 more nurses if 19,000 of them are already nurses. Can you explain?
Well, because there'll be 50,000 more.
Yeah, I know. 19,000
more
now,
through
Nicky
a variety of,
Morgan to
different
Morgan.
routes.
Yeah.
Morgan to Morgan, 19,000 already exist.
So is 50,000 more
How can
than
they
what?
be categorised as more?
Well, because they will not have left the NHS, we will have kept them in the NHS, plus recruiting through apprenticeships and through degrees and through graduates and everything else.
Just to clarify, again, Morgan to Morgan, you being the smart one, me being the idiot, 19,000 of the 50,000 are already current NHS nurses.
And we would expect on current, if you look at the numbers of nursing staff who leave the NHS, it is far too high. So like any employer, you want to make sure that you are keeping your skilled staff, and that is absolutely part of the strategy.
So why don't you just say that? Why don't you just say, we're going to try and persuade people who may want to leave to stay, but rather than not call them more nurses, because more nurses.
Overall, the numbers overall
see, it all
will
comes
be
down to trust,
50,000
doesn't
higher.
it? It comes down to trust.
Higher.
We know that trust in Boris Johnson is very low. We know when he did a debate recently and it came up as a question, everybody laughed at the idea he could be trustworthy. When he leads a manifesto, that the flagship policy in it is there going to be 50,000 more nurses? Yeah. And now you, as the Culture Secretary, a member of that cabinet, a member of the government, admit that 19,000 of them already are NHS nurses. Viewers at home go, well, this is complete nonsense.
But there will be 50... There are other ways that nurses come in to the NHS. There will be overall... And we're very, very clear on this, 50,000 more nurses, if you look in 10 years' time, than there are today.
I know you keep saying that.
And in terms of the trust issue...
I know you keep saying that, but 19,000 of them are existing NHS nurses. Do you see the problem?
Well, but I think it's realistic to say we've got highly skilled staff who we do not want to leave. And that is, if we are able to persuade them and to encourage them to stay, that is good news for nursing care in this country.
Yes, but it's not more nurses. Nicky Morgan, isn't it a bit like saying, on Good Morning Britain tomorrow morning, there will be 3 more presenters, and then tomorrow you just have exactly the same number of presenters because you managed to persuade me, Piers and Charlotte to carry on doing the job tomorrow.
Well, not if there's an additional 3. Not if there's an additional 3, and then you've got your 6, haven't you? But the fact is that 3 of you have been encouraged to come on Tuesday morning and not just on Monday morning.
Yeah, Nicky.
Do we not have really odd maths
Even
going
as
on
you
here?
said that sentence, you knew that was probably a wrong avenue to go down, didn't you?
No, I think it's very clear about the 50,000...
We wouldn't have 6 more presenters. We'd have the existing 3 presenters.
Here's my problem.
And 3 extra presenters.
Here's my problem. It's all smoke and mirrors with you guys, isn't it? On police figures, you go, great news. We're going to bring 20,000 police back to the streets. And then someone goes, yeah, but hang on. You're the ones who took 21,000 away from the streets during your 9 years in government. So that's not actually putting more back. What you're doing is replacing the ones you took away. And with the nurses,
and
you say...
not even enough.
Nurses, 50,000 more nurses. Well, actually, 19,000 are already nurses. You're just trying to stop them leaving. Why don't you just be honest?
Because you look at the numbers...
I would respect you much more if you all just sat there and go, look, here's the deal. We should never have taken all those police off the streets, and we are culpable and wrong, and we're going to bring back the ones we took away. And on nurses, there are loads of people wanting to leave the NHS because we have presided over failure in the NHS so much that 19,000 nurses want to bail. So we're going to try and stop them bailing. If you said that, I would go, you know what? OK, good. But it's the fact you try and pretend it's 50,000 more when 19,000 are already there. The viewers aren't stupid. The voters aren't stupid. They see through this.
The numbers are very, very clear. And in terms of police officers, I think we have said that actually we think that there should be more and that it did go too far. The Prime Minister on the steps of Downing Street earlier on this year made some very clear commitments about more GP appointments, about more NHS funding, about more police officers, about more money going to schools and getting a deal with the EU. And that's exactly what he has done. He has lived up and fulfilled those commitments.
What do you like? What do you like? Look, the main thing in this whole election, as we all know, is Brexit. I think there's a lot to be admired, actually, and the Conservatives, only saying, look, we're not going to go for gangbuster, very expensive policies compared to Labour. I think there's a massive gap between expectation now of the two parties, and people can make their own minds up. Boris Johnson said, look, it's all about getting Brexit done. Right, you're a Remainer to your bootstraps, aren't you? How do you feel about getting Brexit done, given that you think it's completely the wrong way for the country to go?
Well, we've had this debate before, so absolutely I have a view on it, but it's not about my view. And that's one of the reasons I found Parliament so frustrating, and that's one of the reasons we're having this election, is because Parliament wouldn't fulfil the 2016 referendum. What I feel about getting Brexit done is it's absolutely what needs to happen. That's one of the reasons, because it hasn't happened, one of the reasons that trust in politics and in Parliament is so low. And so actually it's only by having a majority Conservative government, and we only need to get 9 more seats, that we will start that process of getting the UK to leave the EU
what do you like about
Christmas
Brexit?
And deliver it before the 1st of December.
What do you like about it?
Well, I think it gives us opportunities to be in charge of things like our own trade policy and our own regulations in different sectors in a way we haven't been before.
That's how you felt in 2016.
If you like that, well, why did you vote against that, given that's what we knew it was? And why did you then, in 2017, after all that and after the election, say you'd do exactly the same again?
Well, because there are other factors. There's no point rerunning the 2016 referendum. I have been very clear as a member of this government.
No, I'm curious why you're telling me about all the good things about Brexit when that was the stuff you voted against.
Because you asked me a question, Piers, and unusually I decided I'd just answer it.
No, I admire the honesty. I admire the honesty.
There's no point.
There is a charge against you, Nicky Morgan, that you can't. You do blow with the wind a little bit. And here you are now telling me about the brilliant Brexit and how great it's going to be for all this stuff. And I'm like, oh, hang on, you voted to Remain. You said you would vote Remain again. So you clearly don't actually agree with all the positives you've just said, or you would have voted to leave.
I think there are opportunities, absolutely, that this country will be able to access through Brexit. But the biggest thing is actually about honouring a democratic vote that happened in 2016. If we want to start to restore trust in politics and in Parliament, making sure that vote is fulfilled.
But I would trust you more.
I've lost count of the number of people
I would trust you
who've come
more
up to me and said they want this to happen.
Okay,
they voted for it. They want it to happen.
Listen, I agree with you. I voted Remain myself, and I would do again.
We've had this conversation.
Yeah, but where we differ is I don't now sit here and say I think Brexit's a great idea. I personally don't.
Well,
I don't understand why you, as a die-hard Remainer, remain in a cabinet where this is the big issue and are now talking up Brexit in a way that makes it so baffling that you would then vote against it.
You've asked me a question about, you said to me, what advantages does Brexit bring? And I've given you some that are captured in our manifesto and elsewhere. This is going to happen, and I've been very clear about the reasons why. I think it's very important.
What's wrong with Brexit,
and this government actually has said they want to get Brexit done.
I get it. What is wrong with Brexit?
What part of the issue, of course, has been 3.5 years of dithering around by Parliament, trying to work out what Brexit means. The Prime Minister's got a deal on the table that is ready to go, that can be started to vote on by MPs
what don't you like about Brexit?
Before Christmas.
Why did you vote against it?
Well, for a whole variety of different reasons. But I can't believe we're actually sitting here. We are sitting here. We've got an election in 2.5 weeks' time.
Why did you vote against it?
You didn't think it was a good idea.
What didn't you like about it?
I had a view then. About Brexit and about our relationship. And actually one of the things has been 3.5 years of not getting on with talking about other priorities facing this country.
You haven't changed your view. You've said, OK, let's clarify one thing. You talk about trust. I need to trust you. So would you vote Remain again if you had to vote again?
Well, we're not. This is not about the referendum. I can't believe we're actually trying to relive.
I'm just asking you what you believe.
Brexit is the biggest issue in the general election.
You've just lectured us all about trust. I'm just to try and trust you.
We're not going to have a second. Under a majority Conservative government, we're not going to have a second. Sorry. under majority Conservative government, we are going to get Brexit done. The UK is going to leave the EU.
Right.
We're not talking about having any second votes, unlike the Labour Party and the Labour leader.
But Nicky
we're talking
Morgan,
about two
you're a member of the
referendums
cabinet.
in 2020.
What do you personally believe now?
Well, my personal belief is we need to get Brexit done.
I get that.
We need to deliver on that so we can talk about the other priorities we started
I get
on
it,
this
but do you think it's a good or
NHS
bad
and police
idea?
and
How
education.
Have you changed your mind about the way you voted?
I think we will absolutely take advantage of Brexit when we do it under majority Conservative government at the end of January.
So are you now a leaver, actually?
Well, I'm in favour of getting Brexit done.
No,
I think that's not a difficult... Well, that's not
what Boris keeps saying every 3 minutes too. But Boris is unashamedly a leaver, and he voted to leave. You voted to remain.
I voted
and
to
after the last election, you said again, I would do the same again. Now, in this election, which is all about Brexit, I'm simply asking, would you do the same again? In other words, do you remain a Remainer, or are you now a leaver?
Well, I've said in the past that, you know, obviously my views from 2016 haven't changed, but my desire to get Brexit done absolutely is there. That is the key thing facing this country. Until we get Brexit done, and only under a Conservative government will that happen.
OK, so if you...
Hang on. Just say back in September, just want to point out, back in September, Nicky Morgan, you'll remember that when asked how you would vote in a second referendum, you would vote Remain again. So... is it not, you know, the voters, they're going to wonder what to believe. You believe in remaining in the EU. In a second referendum, you would vote Remain.
Okay,
and yet you tell them we need to get Brexit done.
We do need to get Brexit done.
But how can you believe those two things at the same time?
Well, I think you could say, I mean, to be fair to you, on that point, on the point of a Remainer wanting democracy to be upheld, I get it. What I can't understand, though, is that when I say to you, well, what don't you like about Brexit that means you would vote Remain again, you seem hesitant to answer. And yet you want us to trust. You want us to trust you. So what is it about Brexit? What is it about Brexit you don't like that means you would vote Remain again?
Because I think actually people watching this are going to think this has been a debate about rerunning an argument from 3.5 years ago. It's why people are so frustrated, because actually we can't move on from 3.5 years ago. But we can, with a majority Conservative government, in an election that is starting, people are starting to vote this week by post. They'll be voting on the 12th of December to make sure that happens. We move on as a country.
Yeah, but just
and we're focusing
I know it's
on
very
the future.
annoying for you. I agree with you as a Remainer that we should honour the referendum result, right? And I personally would vote Remain again. You said you would, but you don't seem to be able to explain why you would do that. And I think in terms of trust in politicians, it comes down to you, Nicky Morgan, and what you believe in and whether we can trust you. So again, I just ask you, what is it about Brexit that you dislike enough to vote Remain again if you had to?
Well, part of it has been the frustration of watching Parliament being unable to deliver
on
the vote. Well, I'm sorry, Piers, to obviously keep saying the same thing, but the point doesn't change. The point is Parliament didn't deliver on the 2016 referendum.
You keep answering a different question. Nicky, with respect, you keep answering a different question. The question I'm asking you is if you would vote Remain again. I want to know what our politicians at this election really believe about Brexit, and so do the voters. After the 3 years you talk about of chaos and parliamentary intervention and so on and so on, I just want to look down the barrel of this camera at you and get a feel for what you personally believe. You have said repeatedly you would vote Remain. I'm simply asking you to say to the electorate, as they go and cast their vote, what is it about Brexit that you dislike so much that you would vote against it again?
My view on Brexit is we need to get it done.
OK.
It's not that what, but whether, you know, the point about Brexit and everything else is not on the back. Yeah, basically, yes, actually. The point is, as a Democrat, we had a vote in 2016. It needs to be honoured, and it's only a majority Conservative government that's going to be able to do that. And that's why I want to see a majority Conservative government, because getting Brexit done is critical to move on to the other priorities for this country.
OK. Should Prince Andrew keep his HRH title?
That is entirely a matter for Her Majesty.
What do you think?
It's a matter for Her Majesty. I mean,
that's
totally within her. You don't have a view
on the biggest scandal to rot the monarchy in 40 years?
I have plenty of views, but that particular issue is solely a matter.
You're the Culture Secretary. You're in charge of media in this country. Do you think
I'm not in charge. Thankfully, I'm not in charge of media in this country because we have a free and independent press, and long may that continue.
Well, you're the culture secretary, so in a sense, you have power over media. You would accept that,
well,
right?
I have some media policy. I absolutely have
okay.
say.
So, like
yes.
I said, you're in charge. So, what do you think? What do you think of this Prince Andrew scandal?
What I think of it is that actually we ought to think about the victims. We focus very much on what's happening here domestically, but actually it's the victims. I think that Prince Andrew, obviously, in terms of the statement he gave last week, has made the right decision to stand back from his duties. He's offered help to law enforcement if they choose to take that up. It's absolutely right. But the heart of this are victims of a convicted sex trafficker.
OK, as things stand, when you see Prince Andrew next, you'll have to call him Your Royal Highness and you'll have to curtsy or bow. How do you feel about that?
Well, I think it's extremely unlikely, given my impending departure from the Cabinet, that I will be seeing Prince Andrew or any other members of the royal family any time soon. But at the end of the day, as the Prime Minister rightly said last week, actually, this is, I know we're talking about individuals, but it's about the institution of the monarchy, which is something that I totally support. And whether somebody is an HRH or not is entirely a matter for the Queen, and I take my lead from her.
Final quick question. You want us to trust Boris Johnson, right?
Yep.
OK. He said if we didn't leave on October the 31st, he would die in a ditch. Is he dead, and is he lying in a ditch?
No, but that's because Parliament decided they didn't want us to leave on the 31st of October. They went for an extension, and that is exactly why we are having this election, to make sure we move on from the last 3.5 years. We can only do that with a majority Conservative
government. And if you don't
government.
get it done, will he be dying in another ditch?
Well, I have to say, I think that's, obviously the language and everything else. But I think the important point, actually, is it's in people's hands, it's in your viewers' hands to make sure if they want this to happen, that it absolutely does, by giving the Conservatives that majority to get Brexit done. OK, Nicky Morgan, we really appreciate you coming on the programme. We have no desire to be anything other than robust with everybody on all parties. And we've given you, I think, a pretty hard time. But you were here and you faced the questions, and that we appreciate. That is what politicians should be doing in a general election. So we appreciate you coming on. Thank you.
Can I just ask, before you go, Nicky Morgan, you said that you wanted to do Strictly Come Dancing. The fact that you're not going to be an MP anymore, are you going to put your pitch in?
I don't think it's a question of putting your pitch in, but yes, as you know, I'm a huge fan of the show, and I'm in awe of quite how good the dancers are this year.
So you are ready and waiting for the call?
Well, who knows what's going to happen in the next phase of my life?
You wouldn't say no, would you, if they called?
Look, I'm a great fan of the show. It'd be an honour.